Well, do we want to try and very quickly sneak in this very last call before we start to wrap up? I know we're already running a little late. Y'all got time for it?
Let's
I'm
do
here.
it.
I'm here for it, and
All
with
right,
just
let's
just
do
one
it.
more, we can do it.
Let's move it
Yeah.
quickly.
Okay. Uh, Neo Shark calling in. He, him from Wisconsin. So we are going to take this call. We'll try to do it quickly, but he is calling in asking the question: is gender blindness a thing?
Ooh, depends on what you mean by gender blindness.
Yeah.
What's your thought, Neo? What's going on?
It's a couple things. Like when other people express like I do this, it makes me feel male. I don't have a comparable experience. Like I don't really I understand like what gender is obviously, and I recognize it and what its stereotype is, or not the stereotype, what stereotypical gender norms are. Like I recognize that, but I've never really looked at a person and kind of thought of them as male or female, because I've always looked at them as like an individual, like the individual characteristics. And so like I don't know if it's just from as a result of my upbringing, because like I was a nerd, I was like ostracized, so like I never really got brainwashed by that whole cultural norm of like men are this, women are this, and that kind of stuff. I kind of like avoided that whole cultural norm by just like burying my head in video games and books.
Maybe that's a mark of something that we can all kind of strive for. But as far as
To
answering
a
that,
degree.
the psychology of that, and like this, these two are going to answer it better than I can. I'm still working through understanding all this myself.
Yeah, I mean, let me just say in the interest of time that the term gender blindness is usually something that we refer to as being comparable to like racial blindness or I don't see color. And it can be sort of dismissive.
Part of the reason why I asked.
Yeah, so that particular term or framework we usually associate as being kind of dismissive and a little dickish. But I do.
That's good to know.
Yeah, I do take the question that you're really asking though, which is like I don't have a strong sensitivity or concern or an interest in other people's gender or perhaps your own. And there's, certainly nuance to pick apart there, but being agender or being what we might call like a gender spectrum, like having less of a gender, being maybe less sensitive to those kinds of things. I think that is very much a valid and complicated identity, but one that you might be curious about and want to look into. Kara, what might you add to any of that?
Yeah, this is a fascinating issue for me too. I'm thinking of, I think it was actually an interview that I saw Judith Butler give, where and I believe they are using they, them pronouns now. Judith
Yes.
Butler has come out as non-binary. And, something that I thought was really fascinating about what they said, given that they're kind of one of the, most well-known, foremost gender theorists who kind of popularized this idea of gender as a performance and, gender as a social construct and something that we're, taught to do. And kind of like you were mentioning, Neo, you grow up kind of swimming in this water of, this is how men are and this is how women are. And some of the work that Butler did was, taking that apart and saying, this is actually a performance. This is not necessarily biological. This is not natural. But something that I found really fascinating in this interview was after they came out as non-binary, they mentioned something like, it occurred to me, somewhat recently that wasn't everyone else's experience of gender. I always felt very disconnected from it, and it was this performance all along. And it turns out it's not that for some other people. And I felt so seen when I read that. And I wonder if maybe that's a little bit of what you're describing too, where it just didn't really resonate with you very much. And I can certainly identify with that. I don't know. Is that kind of what you were talking about?
Partly, I also think it has, like I said, it has to do with my upbringing. I've read literally hundreds of novels, fantasy, sci-fi. I've been slaves. I've been like tyrants. I've been male. I've been female. And so I think partly that kind of inoculated me to the whole gender isn't
That's
a social
fascinating.
construct. It's like people are one way and not just people, a collection of things and experiences.
Mhm.
People are more than the expectations that we might arbitrarily assign to them.
I wonder if it has like a little bit to do with like when you were interacting with somebody, if your ability to like picture what their experience is like, and so you're seeing kind of the world through their eyes, like you would in a novel, experiencing things, imagining and visualizing what their life would be like. And when you're looking from the inside of the eyes out, you're not really perceiving so much of like the physical characteristics or how they're presenting. So maybe that is something to do with it too. That's how you see people. I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I might
Well,
just
they are,
kind
not
of
as I want them to be.
Sure. I'll take something that was said in the chat and kind of adapt it just to say that I think if we consider gender to be something of a performance, we can also recognize that a lot of people put a lot of feeling into that performance. They really resonate with their character. They connect with
Doff.
some of those ideas. Yeah, and other people are able to go out on stage and deliver that performance and have no real empathy or like meaningful or somatic connection with the person that they are acting as. And I think that that is one way that agender people maybe conceive of themselves. And so if you feel like, well, sure, I can act like a dude if I'm supposed to, but I don't necessarily connect with that performance, that may be something to be curious about, or a identity to look into anyhow.
Yeah, like I called in a couple weeks ago about like some BDSM stuff, and like I call it a uniform. I have a nice, I identify as a top in the BDSM community, and I have what I consider my uniform. It's just black slacks, a nice blue long sleeve dress shirt, and I know that's traditionally described to masculinity, but to me, it's not about masculine or feminine. It's about the fucking aesthetic. Like regardless of the gender or the sex of the person who wears a similar aesthetic, I think it's fucking hot.
Yeah. That sounds, yeah, I get it.
Fair
I think
to
I get
say.
it, what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, all of these things are arbitrary constructs that we struggle to keep in our heads and struggle even more to communicate into words to other people. I mean, we have satellites out in outer fucking space that are ensuring that somehow I'm able to sit in my office and communicate this information all across the globe. It's remarkable. And yet, when we are trying to explore our own identities and then communicate those identities to other people, we are just sacks of meat pushing air through our mouth holes and vibrating pieces of our body in weird ways in order to construct sounds and words and sentences and ideas. So yeah, the hardware and the software are a little bit lacking when we try to explore these things. And you know what? It's awesome, right? Like this is life.
Yeah.
It's gross, it's weird, it's messy, it makes no sense, but it's ours.
Yeah,
and here we are in 2023 doing it together.
Yeah, I refer to like human bodies as meat machines, and so one of my favorite things that I came up with is ride the meat machine, don't let the meat machine ride you. And don't give in to your impulses or your instincts. Like control those and control yourself.
It's a very Gnostic take, I would say.
I mean,
we may have a new
also
T-shirt
because,
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also because I'm a huge mech fan. So the idea of riding a meat machine kind of synergizes.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Okay, Neil, thank you for calling in, and I think that was a good discussion. I learned a little bit more, and I think I was grasping onto like how Christy, how you kind of clarified that question. But it's good to know that like saying something like gender blindness is kind of very it's equated to saying like, oh, I don't see color, like, right? It's kind of similar.
Or can be. I mean, obviously,
Can be
the tone and
but
context.
proceed
and
with
everything
caution,
else.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, Neo, I'm going to let you go here because we are over time now and we are
Yeah.
going to finish our show.